Good evening or good morning. I'm not sure what we should say at this point. Many years ago when I started being the Rav in a shul, one of the things that bothered me the most in the beginning was I would get up to give a drasha, and one by one their heads would start falling down, people start going to sleep. It was very, I worked very hard to prepare a drasha, I wanted people to listen to what I had to say, but they're going to falling asleep. Over the years, I don't mind anymore if people fall asleep. Especially when I see that they're in a good sleep, I feel I'm doing a mitzvah. I'm helping them get a good night, especially Friday night. If a husband falls asleep in shul while I'm speaking, I know that he's going to go home, he's going to have more energy, he's going to be nicer to his wife, he'll sing more at the table, he'll be nice to his kids. So sometimes I speak extra, just so they can sleep a little bit longer. The problem is tonight, because the Ben Ish Chai learns that there's a very great mitzvah to sleep inside of a sukkah. And if you fall asleep outside of the sukkah, it's a very, very big aveira. So much so that if you see somebody sleeping outside the sukkah, you have to go over and wake them up so they shouldn't sleep outside the sukkah. So I'm in a very difficult situation. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You've been listening to shiurim, it looks like all night. I'm not as exciting as this Talmid Chacham that spoke before me. So if you start falling asleep, I don't know what to do. I don't want to be responsible for your aveira. I don't want to be a Messiah L'Dvar aveira. I don't want to be responsible for that as well. So if I start banging on the table or I start screaming very loud, it's only because I want to help you stay awake. And when I go to Shemaim after 120 years, I don't want to be responsible for all the people that slept outside of the sukkah, especially in the Sephardic community, who go by the Ben Ish Chai. I don't want that responsibility on my back. So let's, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll try to go. If I start screaming, it's only to wake you up so that you shouldn't fall asleep outside. Tonight is HOSHANAH RABAH. It is a very interesting night in the calendar, because the Zohar HaKadosh tells us, I'm sure that all of you know, that on this night, tomorrow morning after Shacharit, so HaKadosh Baruch is going to send down a petak, he's going to send down a note. And it's going to say, if we were zocher l'chaim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the siyum, the completion of Rosh Hashanah, Seder Yemei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, is happening now on HOSHANAH RABAH. There's a very big question that I'm sure that we all have. You're all good, God-fearing Jews. You look like you all went to shul during Elul, and I'm sure that you went Rosh Hashanah, you went Yom Kippur. Everybody knows the Gemara tells us, on Rosh Hashanah, Tzadikim Gemorim Nichtavim V'Nechtamim La'alter L'Chaim. The fully righteous Jews are written and sealed immediately for life on Rosh Hashanah. And Rishayim Gemorim, the truly wicked people, Nechtavim V'Nechtamim L'Alter L'Mita, they are written immediately and sealed for death. Beinanim, those that are not really a tzaddik, not really a rasha, we hope that's all of us. Teluyim V'Oyimdim ad Yom Kippurim, they're hanging by a thread until Yom Kippur comes. Im zachu, if we merit it, which means we did an extra mitzvah, we did more tshuva, we behaved ourselves on Yom Kippur. Im zachu, nechtavim l'chayim, you'll be written for life. V'im lo zachu, and if not, we won't finish what it says in the Gemara. It's not going to be a very pretty year for a person. So what does that mean? That means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided already what is going to be with all of us. He already signed us and sealed us in the book of life, B'ezrat Hashem. And that happened on Yom Kippur. So how come now we come to HOSHANAH RABAH night? You have to stay up. I know with all the sushi and burritos, it helps it along the way. But you stay up the whole night. Why? Because we believe, like the Zohar tells us, that tonight is the siyum. Tonight is the completion of all of the days of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Seder Yemei Tshuva, and Yom Kippur. Tomorrow morning, when you're going to finish davening Shachrit, you're going to look up and see the notes falling down min hashamayim. Zochu l'chaim, you merited life. How is that? So what was Hashem doing on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? And how is tonight now a new night for us, a new day for us, that now today HaKadosh Baruch Hu is deciding what's going to be. That's question number one. Question number two. After Hoshana Rabbah, Shmini Atzeret Simcha Torah. We're going to dance together, Bezat Hashem, on Thursday. Thursday night and Friday, we're going to dance together with the Torah. We're going to sing, we're going to dance, we're going to make it a simcha, a real simcha. Didn't we have Shavuot 6 months ago? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, right? And Chazal described that the Torah, when it was given in Har Sinai, was like a chatunah, was like a wedding between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Torah is the ketubah. So we got married. And most people at their wedding, they dance. And most chatanim, by their wedding, when they see the beautiful kala come down and sitting there, they get up and they start dancing. Ask the Dubno Magid, why are we waiting 6 months until Simchat Torah to dance for the Torah? We should have had after the learning all night long on Shavuot night. We should stop maybe 20 minutes early. We should make hakafot and we should dance. Make it lebedik, make it lively. What do we suddenly, 6 months later, that's when we start to dance? The chassid, the chatan dances after the wedding? He danced at the wedding itself. Question number two. Let's go back a little bit. I remember when I moved to Los Angeles about 16, 17 years ago, I was an avreich in the Sephardi kollel in the valley. And I learned a very valuable lesson that year during the month of Elul. By the Ashkenazim, we have a saying. There's something called the Yom Kippur Yid, the Yom Kippur Jew. What does that mean? That means you will not see this person for a whole year. You'll never see him at shul. He won't come to learn. He won't come to pray. He won't come to a class. Nothing. Comes Yom Kippur. He comes early. Because he got there in the car, so he got there early enough. He came early. He davens like a man. She davens with a lot of kavanah. He cries. He does al chait. Then you don't see him for another year. Yom Kippur Jew. I came to the valley, to the kollel. I learned something amazing. In the Sephardi world, there's something called the Slichot Jew. And I came and I saw people coming all the month of Elul. They wake up 5 o'clock in the morning. They come in the shul. They come in and davening and they're saying slichot 45 minutes every day. You know, by the Ashkenazim, we only say slichot like 10 days. And we're already looking, where can we cut out? What can we skip? How have to make it? 30 minutes we have to make it. 45 minutes, even Erev Yom Kippur, 45 minutes. We're 15 minutes Erev Yom Kippur. You're 45 minutes. I noticed after the Yomim Noraim, I didn't see this guy anymore. Or that guy. So I asked, where are they? Oh, no. Rabbi, you don't understand. It's called the Slichot Jew. They come every year, Slichot. You won't see them till next year. So what did we do? All of Chodesh Elul, all of Rosh Hashanah, all of Aseret Shemei Tshuva, all of Yom Kippur, we were doing tshuva, we were crying out to Hashem, we were asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, forgive me Hashem, I made so many mistakes here, I won't do it again. We were serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu biyira, with fear and trepidation. We're afraid Hashem is the Melech, He's the King, He has life and death in His hands, He can do anything that He wants. He could give us life, or chas v'chalil, He could give us death, God forbid. He can give us brachot, or He can give us tzarot. He can give us health, or chalila v'chas, He can give us sickness. He can give us parnasah, or He can take it all away. So the whole month of Elul, we wake up early. We're afraid what's going to be this year. We look at last year, we thought it was going to be a good year. It turned out to be one of the most difficult, challenging years ever for Klal Yisrael. So we're all on edge, the whole Elul. Comes Rosh Hashanah, Mamlich Hashem, Hashem, you are the king. I'm your servant, I'm going to serve you. Search me at tshuva. We start doing tshuva seriously every day. Yom Kippur, the whole day we're standing, we're fasting, we're davening, we're pounding on our hearts. Please forgive me, Hashem. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, beautiful. You did an amazing job. I believe you. You are so sincere. It's coming from the bottom of your heart. I understand that you want me to forgive you for everything and give you an amazing year. But a Jew cannot serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of yira, out of fear. A person cannot only tremble every day when they come to shul, they cannot tremble when it comes to Shabbat because they don't want to make a mistake. They can't tremble when they walk into this restaurant. Is it kosher? Is it not kosher? I don't know. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a higher level of avodat Hashem. And it's like King David, Dovid HaMelech, who tonight is doing shtiza, and Dovid HaMelech is, Ivdu et Hashem besimcha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a Jew to serve Hashem besimcha, with joy, with happiness, being uplifted, being excited, being enthusiastic. They asked the Arizal HaKadosh, how were you zocher to the highest levels of Kedusha, to the levels of Zohar Kadosh? From the days of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, nobody reached the levels of what the Arizal reached. How did you do that? What is the secret? And the Arizal said one thing: every mitzvah that I did, every word of Torah that I learned, every tefillah that I prayed, I did it b'simcha. And when a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of joy, out of simcha, it's the highest level that a person could reach. There's a beautiful story that goes back probably around the times of World War I. In the Russian army, there were a lot of Jewish soldiers. And it was not easy to be a Jewish soldier in the Russian army. They were big anti-Semites, and they made it very hard for us to keep the mitzvot. And one day, one of the soldiers walked into the Beit Midrash of the Slonim Rebbe. And the Rebbe looks up from his seat, and he sees this soldier in his uniform walk in, and he sees that he has a shine. He's radiating light on his face. And the Rebbe turns to one of his chassidim and says, who is that? He said, he's a soldier in the Russian army. He said, call him over here. So the soldier comes over to the Rebbe and says, yes, Rebbe, what can I do for you? He says, I see a light on your face like I've never seen before. Tell me, you must have done a very special mitzvah. Tell me, what mitzvah did you do that is so special? I don't see light like that on anybody. So the soldier was very shy and embarrassed, and he said, no, I'm a Pashut Yid, I'm a regular Jew like everybody else. I don't do anything so special. No, it's not true. Tell me. You must have done a mitzvah that is so high in the eyes of Hashem. You have a light on your face. What mitzvah is it? So he begins thinking, and he says, I can only think of the following. A couple of months ago, it was Sukkot, and I'm in the army, and I'm on patrol the whole night in the army camp. I'm watching to make sure nobody comes in, nobody goes out. And I realized it's the first night of Sukkot. And I look out into the distance and I see there's a Jewish house that has a sukkah. And I thought to myself, if only Ribbono Shel Olam, I could get out of the camp tonight and I could get to that sukkah. I'll take my bread along with me. I'll make kiddush quickly. I'll eat the bread. I'll make leishe b'sukkah. I'll fulfill the mitzvah of eating on the first night of Sukkot in the sukkah. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, make it work that the guards will leave. Make it that they won't see me. I'll be able to climb over this high wall. Please, Hashem. And the whole night I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And lo and behold, one by one, the guards on duty started falling asleep. And I was the only one awake. and the coast was clear. I jumped over the wall. I ran to the sukkah. I pulled out my kiddush and my bread. I made a motzi. I said leishim sukkah. I benched. I said birkat hamazon afterwards, and I came back to the camp. And I fulfilled the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah the first night. And the Rebbe looked at this soldier and he said, that's beautiful. Mesirut nefesh. Beautiful story. But that's not it. That's not why you have to shine. You did something else that night. What else did you do that night? I see this shine that's coming from Gan Eden. What did you do? And the soldier looked down. He was a very shy person. And he said, there's one other thing that I did. When I came back to the army camp and everybody was still asleep, I was so happy that I was able to do the mitzvah. I want you to know, Rebbe, I stayed up the entire night singing and dancing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thanking Hashem that I was zocher to be able to do the mitzvah of eating in the sukkah that night, singing and dancing with joy. Said the Rebbe, that's the answer. Because when a person serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'simcha, it is so great in the eyes of Hashem. Your mitzvahs, they double, they triple 1,000 times what it is when a person does a mitzvah serious, because he has to, because he has no choice. Simcha shows you appreciate what it is that you're doing. Did you ever see anybody in Shiloh's down the street eating that 40-ounce steak then looking sad? No. Because they're happy. Because it's geschmack. Steak, 40 ounces of steak is amazing. You ever see a guy take a second one? Yeah, because it's even more geschmack. Wow, that's so good. You ever see anybody out there in the sukkah tonight? He's got a plate piled with Lenny's casitas in one hand, the french fries in the other one. He has to separate the sushi over here. There's cookies over here. He's smiling. Why? Because it tastes so good. And it's free, Rabotai. It's even better. So it's so good. When something is good and you appreciate it, automatically, like Dovid says, Ivdu et Hashem, serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you're serving Hashem, automatically you should be b'simcha. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when I see you happy, when I see you enjoying the mitzvot, when I see you loving learning, when I see you come to shul with a smile on your face, then I know that you're reaching the higher level. There's a Rav that used to be in Eretz Yisrael, Rav Oshazel Grubashin Zatzal. I heard many, many stories about him when I was a bacher, when I was a young man learning in yeshiva. And they used to say that this man, when he davens to Hashem, you've never seen anything like it before. He actually smiles and he laughs out of joy when he's talking, when he's davening to Hashem. So, I believed it. Of course I believe it. The person I heard it from was a reliable person, but I wanted to see it. What does it look like when a person is talking to Hashem, their Father, and they know that their Father says everything they say, and they're laughing and chuckling with joy? So I learned in Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, and one day Rav Asher Zelagrubashin came to our yeshiva, and he came just in time to daven Arvit. And he was standing by the bima. Now I davened farther, much farther away, but I saw that he was there for Arvit. So I said, you know what? I can't daven in my regular place. I must go next to him. I want to see how he davens. So I moved my place and I stood right near him. And I know you're not supposed to do this when you're davening. You're supposed to be totally focused on the davening, but I just couldn't. One eye was on Rabbi Rubinstein the whole time. And suddenly I see him take his 3 steps back and 3 steps forward. And right away, smiling. And he starts davening and he starts laughing. He's chuckling. He's giggling. He's talking to the Ribono Shel Olam. He was so happy to talk to Hashem. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm proud of you for all your avodah during the month of Elul. I'm proud of all your Yirat Shemayim on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and all the tshuva that you did. It's amazing, it's fantastic, it's great. But I don't want you to live the whole year with trepidation and fear and to be serious. Klal Yisrael is supposed to be happy people. Ivdas Hashem b'simcha all the time. And therefore, I'm going to give you a Yom Tiv. Look at the chesed that Hashem does. Hashem has been testing us out the last week of our lives. Are you going to be happy? Are you going to embrace mitzvot? Are you going to show me how sincere you were when you were crying to me on Yom Kippur and you said, I'm going to be better this year, Hashem, I promise you. Were you really sincere? Did you really mean it? You know how I'll know? How happy are you going to be to daven? How happy will you be to work on your midot? How happy will you be to come to a shiur and to learn? See, Lord, I'm going to help you, says Hashem. I'm going to give you zman simcha teino. Could it get any better? HaKadosh Baruch Hu worked everything out for us. I'll give you a chag, a Yom Tov called Sukkot, zman simcha teino, the time of our joy. What's the joy? I want to see that when you pay $500 for your etrog, I want to see you smile. When you're sitting in the sukkah in the daytime and the wind is blowing and it's hot, I want to see you smiling. When it gets cold at night and you're sleeping in the sukkah, I want to see you smiling. And when you're spending all the money, $400 for a roast, Ribono Shel Olam. Farmer John is charging you $18 for a roast. What's going on over here? I want to see you smile because you're doing mitzvot. I want to see you take the lulav. You know what the lulav is? The eyes, the mouth, the heart, and the spine of a Jew. I want to see you bring it all together. You bring your whole self together and serve me. That's simcha. The lulav in the etrog is the Jew with Torah and mitzvot, the Jew with only Torah, no mitzvot, the Jew with mitzvot and no Torah, the Jew with no mitzvot and no Torah. I want to see you bring all of Klal Yisrael together as one on this Chag. And I want you to see the great Simcha when the Jewish people are together. Achdut. The Midrash says every one of the Dalaminim is Hashem, another aspect of Hashem. When you bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu together in your life as one, Shema Yisrael Shavak Hashem Echad. And you realize Hashem is running the world. And He's watching over you. And He's taking care of you. And everything is going to be okay. I want to see your simcha. I want to see your joy. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, go into the sukkah, dwell in the Ananei HaKavod, in the clouds of glory. Sit in the sukkah, be surrounded by Hashem and the Shekhinah. What greater simcha, what greater joy in the world is there than that? Nothing. That's the greatest joy in the world. And therefore says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I believe you. Rosh Hashanah, I believe you, Yom Kippur, and I've got great things in store for you this year. Only one thing I want to see. I want to see, are you going to serve me this year with Simcha? Because that's the way of a Jew. A Jew has to be a happy person. We have the greatest gifts in the world. And that's why the Dubna Magid says that we didn't dance with the Torah on Shavuot. We waited until now to dance. To Bezat Hashem, Thursday night and Friday, we're going to dance on Simchat Torah. Why? He says, I'll give you a parable. He says, a king is marrying off his daughter, and he's looking for a prince. And he does a little looking around in the town, and he finds the man that he feels is perfect, and he says, you know what? You're going to marry my daughter. Whoa, what an honor. I'm going to marry the daughter of the king. What an honor. And he goes through and he gets his tuxedo and he comes to the royal wedding, and there's in a big banquet hall, and there's the best band and the best food and the best everything. And the music and the people and hundreds of people, thousands of people. And the wedding comes and the wedding goes, and he and his wife now are beginning to live together and beginning to learn about each other. And suddenly 6 months down the road, one day they're sitting in their house, and the Chatan gets up, the prince gets up in the living room, and he starts dancing for his wife. And she says, what are you doing? He says, you know, when we got married, I knew that you're the princess. I knew how wonderful you are. I saw how beautiful you are. But I never fathomed What an amazing woman you are. How you take care of me, how you cook for me, how you fold my clothes, how you smile at me, how you make yourself so beautiful, how you encourage me. I never fathomed how amazing you were. Now that it's 6 months later, I realize the gift that you are in my life. Says Klal Yisrael to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we came to our Sinai. We said, Naaseh v'nishma. We didn't even know what the Torah was all about, but we said, if you're giving it to us, Hashem, we'll take it. But now we had 6 months. We learned Torah, we're living Torah, we're keeping the mitzvot. Suddenly we come to the night of Simcha Torah. Wow, we're so excited. We can't believe how beautiful the Torah is. Now we dance for the Kala. Now we dance for the Torah. Now we dance for Hashem. It's a night of elevation, which means that we took our Naaseh v'nishma. We took the basic wedding that took place, and now we elevated to a world of Simcha, to a world of love that we have with the Torah. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you all did amazing during Chodesh Elul. And Rosh Hashanah was Shmamlech Hashem, Yom Kippur, Tshuva, Gemara, Slicha, Mechil, V'Kapara. Now we spent a week in the Sukkah. Now we spent a week with the Dalaminim. Now we spent a week celebrating the Simcha. Ooh, says Hashem. Now I see you really were sincere in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You really meant what you said you're going to do. You're going to grow, you're going to get closer to me. Remember, every mitzvah you do b'simcha will bring you much, much closer. Ein hashchina shara ela mitoch simcha. The Shechina will only dwell in a person's life if you're happy. Not when you walk around afraid all the time. Only when you are happy. And therefore, Hoshana Rabbah is such a night, such a day, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, when I have examined you for the last week, and I've seen the way that you're behaving, and I see the simcha, the joy that you have in your life, now I make the siyum, I make the completion of all of the judgments of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and you're going to look this morning after the davening is over, you're going to see the love letter from HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming down from Shemayim and says, Pitka Tova for you, Zacho L'chaim. You merit another year of life, not just life, good life. Brachot, Panasat Tova, Refuah, Briud, Yeshuot, Nechamot, everything that you need, it's all coming from Hashem. I heard an amazing story this Sukkot. And I was just telling over this story someplace else, and as I'm telling over this story, I see somebody talking to his friend, and he ends up pulling up a picture of the people that it's about. Amazing story. For those of you that are Persian in this room, many of you, when you traveled from Iran and you came to America, many of you had to stop over in a place called Austria. Anybody had to go through Austria? Yes. And when you were in Austria, you met Reb Michael Pressburger, I'm sure. Did you meet his father as well? Was his father? Yes. Listen to this story. And that's why you're here today. At the time of the Holocaust, what was his father's name? Do you know? Rabbi Pressburger. Yeah. At the time of the Holocaust, the Jews were trying as much as they can to escape from the Nazis, Yamach Shema. And this Rabbi Pressburger was a young man, and he managed to avoid the camps, to avoid the concentration camps. And he became what's called a partisan. The partisans were the Jews that had escaped. They didn't go to the concentration camps. They were able to get off of the cattle cars, and they were hiding out all the time in the forest. And they had guns, and they had weapons, makeshift weapons, and they did their best to kill as many as the Nazis they possibly could, and save their lives and live out throughout the war and eventually be saved. One night, after a very long day of traveling and walking and trekking through the mountains and the forest, they come deep into the forest late at night. And it's cold. It's October, cold air in Europe is very cold. And they're shivering and they're exhausted and they're hungry and they're tired. And all they can do is muster up enough strength to lay down on the ground and start to go to sleep. So they get a little bit of koyach strength back and then go on their way within a few hours because they're always on the run. This Pressburger young man lays back down on the ground to go to sleep. And as he's going into dreamland, he remembers tonight is the first night of Sukkot. I'm sitting in a forest, freezing, far from my family. They all died in the war, trying to save my life. I don't have a sukkah, I don't have dalamina, I have nothing. And he looks around and he sees trees everywhere. Schach, I see. The walls of the sukkah, I don't see. He says, anyway, holchei drachim patim in a sukkah. Those that are moving, those that are wandering, those that are traveling, exempt from the sukkah. My life is pikuach nefesh, and my life is in danger. I'm exempt and patur from the sukkah. And he starts to fall asleep. And then he says, Ribono Shel, maybe I can make a sukkah here in the forest. And I have some bread, and I'll make a bracha, leishei b'sukkah, I'll do the mitzvah. Where am I going to get walls? And then he thinks, if I dig a hole in the ground large enough to fit into, and I'll cover up the top of the hole with the tree branches, I'll have a sukkah for myself. So he starts digging and digging and digging, and the ground is cold, the dirt is hard, and his hands are getting not only muddy and dirty, he's starting to bleed from all the rocks and the sharp things, and he's digging and digging and digging, and finally, after a long time, he digs out a hole that is big enough to fit inside of. And he gets some branches that are on the ground, and he covers the hole, and he makes a roof of schach, and he goes inside the sukkah. And he takes out his bread. He makes hamoitzi, leishei b'sukkah. And he feels so good. Fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. And he's exhausted. He says, Hashem, let me just fall asleep a little bit. I'll have to wake up quickly because we're always going to be on the run. I know my friends are going to leave soon. Let me just sleep a little bit in the sukkah. And he falls into a deep, deep sleep. Not 30 minutes, not 1 hour, not 2 hours. He sleeps the entire night in the sukkah until the rays of light of the new day are shining through the schach. And the warmth of the sun is beginning to wake him up. And he says, Oy vey, I overslept. For sure my friends all left without me. Now I'm going to be all by myself. What's going to be? The Nazis will find me. I'm a dead duck over here. And he peeks his head out of the sukkah. And he sees, to his great surprise, every single one of the partisans that he was traveling with had all been killed that night by the Nazis. And he was in the sukkah, and he was saved. Because they didn't see that he was there. His life was saved. He went on to Austria. He had a son. And many of you that are sitting in this room tonight are here because one man did not give up on the mitzvah of sukkah v'mesirut nefesh, but he did it b'simcha. Do you know what it's like to dig a hole in the middle of the night when you have no strength left with your bare hands? But he did it b'simcha. Why? Because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from Klal Yisrael, from the Jewish people. He wants us to rejoice. And therefore he says, I'm going to give you Zman Simcha Teinu. It's a whole week for you to get ready, to express your joy to be a Jew, express what it means, all the hard work you put into the Elul and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's all to show that you appreciate the gift of life that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. Life was meant to serve Hashem. Says Dovid HaMelech, V'ani kirvat Elokim li toiv. For me, I'm a king. I have a palace, I have riches, I have chariots, I have horses, I have gold, I have silver, I have diamonds, I have rubies, I have a whole nation that is under my rule. I go out to war and everybody gives me honor. I meet the kings of the neighboring countries. They give me such kavod. But for me, says Dovid HaMelech, Kirvat Elokim Litoiv, to be close to Hashem, that's all that's good. And that's what I want. Achad sho'alti beit Hashem od avakesh, shifti bebeit Hashem kol yimei chayai. I just want to dwell in your house, Hashem. Wherever I go, let me dwell together with you. This is the simcha of what it means to be a Jew. This is the madrega that everybody can get to. The Arizal only became the Arizal because he served HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'simcha. Dovid HaMelech became Dovid HaMelech because he served Hashem b'simcha. And we are going to be zoichet to the Pitka Tova because HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees we serve Hashem b'simcha. I want to leave you off with one last ma'aseh. Amazing story. There's a Rav in Kiryat Sefer in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rav Lugasi. And he was once walking out of shul. And an old man came over to him and he said, Rabbi, I have to tell you a story. And he says, you know that I'm an older man. I survived the Holocaust. He says, but you don't know my whole story. He said, in my town, when the Nazis came in, they were taking everybody one by one by one. And there was a young priest, a goy, a priest, who lived in our town. And he had rachmanut, he had mercy on me. And he took me, and he hid me from the Nazis. And he saved my life. And part of the miracle was, after the war was over, you know, there's many terrible stories where they converted the children to Christianity. He didn't do that to me. He told me, you're a Jew. He says, now you're free. Go move on with your life. Maybe you'll go to the Holy Land. Go live a life as a Jew. And sure enough, I came to Eretz Yisrael. I got married. I have children. I have grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And it's very much in part in the zechut of this priest over there. He says, you should know that me and the priest, we kept in touch with each other all of these years. So much so that there were times that he would come to visit me in the land of Israel. I know his children, he knows my children. We write letters to each other, we keep up with each other. But this rabbi, you're never going to believe. A few months ago, he came to visit me here in Eretz Yisrael. And he came to my house, and we sat down to talk. And suddenly, in the middle of the conversation, it got very quiet and very serious. And we're kind of just looking at each other. And he pulls out an envelope from his pocket. He pulls out an envelope. The priest pulled out an envelope from his pocket. And he handed it to me. And he said, please, read the letter that I've written to you. And I open up the letter. And the letter says the following words. You know, I'm getting older. My time in this world is not going to be much longer, the priest is saying. And I've come to realize the truth in my old age. And the truth is, the Jewish people are the chosen people. The Torah is the right thing. And your God is the right God. And he says, I have some hand in saving your life. And I feel very connected to the Jewish people. I want to ask you a request. When I die, I would like to be buried next to you. I want to be buried next to a Jew, so I can have the merits of your Gan Eden, of your holiness that is coming after this world. So now, the Holocaust survivor says to the rabbi, I work for the Chevra Kadisha. I know that the answer is no, we can't do such a thing. A goy cannot be buried next to a Jew. But I didn't want to answer him right away. So I told him, you know what? I will go to the biggest rabbi in Jerusalem and I will ask him your question. It's a very complicated question. And let's see what he has to say. So I went to Rabbi Yosef Shalom Eliashiv, where at the time was what we call the Posek Hador, the leading halachic authority of the generation. I went to him in Jerusalem and I asked him the question. I showed him the letter. I told him. And Rabbi Eliashiv was amused by the Shiloh. And he looked at me and he says, but you know the answer. The answer is no. He cannot be buried in a Jewish cemetery, not next to a Jew, not next to, even though he's a righteous Gentile, he cannot be. So I called the priest. I told him I went to the big rabbi in Jerusalem, and this is what he said. I'm sorry. Okay, fine, I understand. A few months later, the priest comes back to Israel to visit me once again. And he says, I have another idea. Okay, I won't be buried next to you. I will allow my body to be cremated and just sprinkle my ashes in the graveside near to you, so that I will have the merit of being buried next to the chosen people. I told the priest, I'll go back to the rabbi in Jerusalem, we'll ask him what he has to say. I went back to Rabbi Eliashiv, and I asked him, and he said, this time Rabbi Eliashiv, he smirked, he chuckled to himself, and he says, you know the answer. The answer is still no, he can't. Even if he cremated, he can't. And I told the priest, I'm very sorry. Halacha is halacha, and you cannot be buried next to me, and we cannot sprinkle your ashes next to me. That's it. I'm sorry. So the old man looks at Rabbi Lugasi and he says, Rebbe, he says, do you understand the story? He said, this is a priest, a goy, and he recognizes how choshev, how valuable and amazing it is to be a Jew, so much so that he wants to be buried next to him. He lived his whole life preaching Yashka, preaching the church, preaching all of his kfir, all of his heresy. And at the end of his life, what does he acknowledge? How Klal Yisrael is the nation that is beloved by HaKadosh Baruch Hu more than anyone. He said, Rebbe, if a priest goy can acknowledge that he wants to be buried with the Jewish people, then how much should we acknowledge while we're alive what it means to be a Jew? And we should live our lives b'simcha as a Jew who is connected and committed to Torah, committed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, committed to the mitzvot, committed to living a life that is a Kiddush Hashem. And my dear friends, if we will live our lives like that this year, and we show HaKadosh Baruch Hu tonight and tomorrow morning, this is what we believe in our heart of hearts, and we will be b'simcha, then everybody's guaranteed. You look up in the morning after Shachrit, and you'll see all these beautiful love letters coming down from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, addressed to each and every one of you individually, saying, Zachita l'chaim, you are zoche to another year of life, chayim tovim umetukim, sweet and a good year, Bezat Hashem, for you, for your families, for your loved one, for Klal Yisrael, all throughout the world. And Bezat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring us to the ultimate simcha, with the Biat Goel Tzedek, the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'mheira v'yamin.